Welcome to a Shot in the Arm podcast. We're here in Rio de Janeiro for AIDS 2026, and I'm joined by my bestie,
Yvette from South Africa, APA, to be specific.
And the question we want answered is whether this is all worth it, bringing the AIDS community from around the world together in one place right now, given all the financial issues. What do you think, Yvette?
It's not only worth it, but it's important that we are all here to make decisions about the shape of the future. Not only certain people first, but humanity first.
That's our theme for the week, humanity first. So with that, let's go over and have a chat and see what we're going to do this week.
Let's do that.
Well, Yvette, let's get started. Here we are, Rio, AIDS 2026. What's important to you about the conference this year in particular?
Hi, Ben. It's nice to see you in Rio. But I think for me, what's important is that this might be one of the most important conferences to shape the future for HIV leadership, HIV prevention, where we're going as a world, as a globe, even before the directions we take in our countries. So for me, this conference, it is important, three things. Leadership from Africa. I want to see leadership shaping the future of how HIV prevention works in Africa and the programming around it, but also most importantly, financing. I think we are at a cusp where who funds HIV programs can no longer be something we don't talk about. We need to talk about sovereignty from government, sovereignty from Africa, and as well as talking where does dependency and responsibility start and end.
Because the old way of doing things of countries, and not just in Africa, in Asia and to some degree Latin America too, have relied and depended on donor funding, especially from the United States. Yeah, but that's all gone now.
Yes, but it's also important to know that that's not all gone, Ben. I want to give you a different view, that might just mean that aid is now being used for people to see alliances, to see allies, to see who supports who. And as we know, that most of the funding for Africa will go because of the direction we're taking with regards to sovereignty. We see examples with South Africa, but aid is used as a weapon against humanity right now, and HIV specifically, because it affects the African countries most.
Well, I completely agree with that. And I think I'm going to be really interested at presentations and conversations here that look at the way, let's take Africa, African countries are being creative, developing their own approaches, their own innovation to treatment, prevention, testing, and awareness that don't rely on clinical trials or clinical investigations, social behavioral interventions that come from academic institutions in the US or Europe. It's going to be really interesting and important to see how sisters are doing it for themselves.
Yes, and importantly is how we did not die since 2025, early February. So for me, it's important to see and to hear how programs outside of the US, in other countries as well, have survived, had the resilience to continue. Because when the aid left, the community stayed. We had programs that were deeply rooted in passion that continued even when there was no money. So I would like to see that come out more. And that is what will help us shape the future around how this programming needs to happen and where the leadership needs to lie.
And I hope there will be a chance to reflect and to remember the names of people who we've lost in the last year and a half as a result of the changes in American aid. And I think that's really important to remind former South Africans like Elon Musk that, he still says, well, nobody's died, nobody's shown me a name. Well, here are the names. Nick Kristof did it in the New York Times, but I feel we, right at the forefront, have to be saying, this is the impact you've had, but we are in control of the future.
Yes, I totally agree that we need to recognize those names. And I think we should not play in the hands of our enemies by saying, we did not die. And some people do not have a right to speak about HIV. Yes. I would not name names. Some people just cannot talk about HIV, and I will hardly take them serious.
Yeah. One of the things I'm going to be interested in terms of the data presentations on the science, well, first of all, there's a lot of science here, which is great because it shows that there is a lot of activity happening right around the world. But from our pharmaceutical friends, from Gilead, from ViiV, and actually particularly from Merck, because they have a whole blossoming here. Well, with Merck, it's always about a reblossoming because they come up with brilliant ideas and then the competition overtakes them. Well, let's hope this time it's different. You've got alimatravir, which is the once monthly PrEP, and they did something that I think is really noteworthy and worth shouting from the rafters about in making commitments now before they've submitted their regulatory applications to do access the partnerships with generic companies they've had, that they are setting up. And I think that's really important. It's something that Eric Gooseby and I have been thinking about and speaking about in the Global Health Diplomats a lot. And then, of course, you've got the, I can never pronounce this, I want to call it islatravir, but I think it's islatravir, which is the combination treatment with cabotegravir from ViiV, which is the once weekly treatment. So I think it's really interesting. You've got a once monthly PrEP, you've got a once weekly treatment. We know we have such exciting transformations with Gilead's compound, which name escapes me. It's lenacapavir, and of course ViiV's cabotegravir. So I think the data is going to look exciting this week.
Yeah, I think innovation is way ahead of us because of the current funding landscape. So there's a lot of new drugs coming out, there's combination treatments. And for me, one of the exciting things is that we are starting to talk about choice in treatment. For me, that is important. As somebody living with HIV for over 24 years, it is important that we start talking about what we can do to ensure that treatment fatigue is taken care of. And I like the fact that they are thinking about is cabo, is leno, is all of these, is islatravir. And what for many is a competition of who gets the drug and who makes the most money is an African life. It is a human life for us. So we welcome the science, but I think we should not lose the importance of choice. All of these innovations needs to get into the choice basket, or else it is an empty promise.
Well, that's right. And it's incredible that you talk choice in treatment.
Yes.
Because in the past, we've had different regimens, different approaches that have been the flavor of the month or flavor of a few years before a new innovation comes along. Now we're beginning to get those options. And I think the other thing related to what you said that I'm very interested in seeing is the African confidence. So these are drugs that developed by Western companies, genericized by largely Indian companies, but you're beginning to see real concrete interest in local manufacturing. We have, one or two companies, particularly in South Africa, that are, starting from scratch, as it were, from compound to registration to access, particularly in vaccines. So I'm going to be very interested to see how Africans here own the treatment data and how they want to see it implemented.
Yes, we mustn't forget Africa is the biggest place, South Africa particularly for HIV, scale and treatment. But we also need to know that we are more than just consumers of these drugs. Africa needs to benefit from what happens, the creation thereof. We see VIV talking to our government with regards to lenacapavir. We see Merck having early discussions, but we need to understand, we need to respect the policies of countries. In South Africa, the BEE, you cannot get over that. You have to ensure...
Which is the regulatory system. Yeah.
Yes, the BEE system is important, that it has to be 51% Black owned. And that's where we are. You can tell us whatever you tell us, but if it doesn't speak to the empowerment of Black business in South Africa, we're going to find and hit a brick wall.
But I think there's an opportunity here. I've seen it in so many industries, in the entertainment industry, in the sports industry. This is Africa's century. A recent episode of AIDS 2060 with my good friend Arthur Snell, he pointed to the energy industry as one where Africa will leapfrog, essentially, many other countries and become a major energy producer, responsible and owned by itself rather than American companies. So I'm really hoping we can see the fruits of that beginning to emerge here as it relates to medicine and health.
Yes.
The other thing I wanted to get your thoughts on, we have our American friends here in a smaller number than in the past, but they're still here.
Who are you talking about?
The United States. The, what is it called? The America First Global Health Strategy. How do you think delegates are going to respond?
We're not going to respond. When you talk delegates, I'm part of that delegation. We're not going to respond. We cannot respond to anything that doesn't say humanity first. That says America first. So everybody else, EMVA, back, no. It's not going to be a good response. And I know a lot of people won't like me for this, but anything that says you first and everybody else last cannot be entertained.
Yeah, it's the murder, if you like, of multisectoralism. But the things that those populists have to understand is actually multilateralism, multiculturalism is actually fundamentally stronger. So the interesting thing here actually is going to see how we come together as a community, humanity first. That ought to be one of the key themes of the conference.
And that is what has been the answer to the HIV response since HIV happened in this world, is that we took this on together and fought it on together. Initially, the plans were to divide us and thought that this disease was going to stay in certain poor parts of the world, but it showed that this disease knows no borders. It understands flights and visas and everything else that goes with it. And that is when we work together to say we as humanity needs to stand together. Not only one country superior over everybody else. It makes no sense, Ben. It really does not make sense.
And it's not working in practice. As you know, I'm chair of the San Francisco Community Health Center. It is going to be learning around community street outreach, not just from partners in the United States, but I particularly think of LVCT Health in Kenya, Lillian Otiso's organization, and how they will train and educate and share best practice to groups like the Community Health Center. That's already happening.
Yes. And it's because that's the power of community. And I think that is something people need to look out for here at the conference. They would see just how united people affected and infected with HIV are, not as divided as they hope we should be. We are not brought here together by the money. We are brought here together by one thing, and that is the HIV disease that threatens our communities, threatens our children, threatens our leaders. And this is the reason why we are here. We are not here for the funding.
We're here for humanity first.
Yes, humanity first.
Well, let's get on with it, shall we?
Yes, let's do it.
Well, thank you, Yvette.
Thank you, Ben.
Thanks also to our director and producer, Erica Spera of A Shot in the Arm Media. And thanks to all of you. And I hope you'll continue watching us this week. We have presentations, podcasts. Why am I saying presentations? We're a podcast coming out every day this week. They will be fun, entertaining, with a lens coming from young people. So we're very excited.
Thank you so much, Ben, for having me.
Cheers.